I am so glad you convinced me that the family car should be the Defender 110. It is so beautiful inside, it's so comfortable, and it just feels indestructible.
Yes, it really is. I've been waiting a long time for the new model to come out. The Defender 110, I'm telling you, it's my favorite car of all times. It's my third one. You know, I have stories of going off road. The guy managed the group. He was like, "What are you doing in this beautiful car?" I'm like, "I'm going off road." He's like, "Are you sure? Because you can use one of ours." And then they look like Mad Max cars. I'm like, "No, no, 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 we're going to do this." And he was shocked.
Wow. Well, it's great because the Defender has been reimagined for 21st century adventure, and its unparalleled off-road ability as well as its robust interior are invaluable whether you're headed towards uncharted territory or just a weekend of exploration. The Defender 110 tackles challenging surroundings with absolute confidence. The SUV conveys strength outside and in, featuring peerless technology like an intuitive driver display and an award-winning infotainment system. That's my favorite part, to keep you connected no matter where the journey takes you. Adventure is unique to everyone, and so is the Defender. Choose from the two-door Defender 90, the four-door Defender 110, or the larger Defender 130 with the ability to seat up to 8 passengers. You'll find uncompromising performance in all three. So pack up and go even further with the Defender 110. Learn more at LandRoverUSA.com/Defender.
These days, we're all investors, trying to be smart with our money despite our worst impulses. But at iShares, we believe that deep down inside of every investor is a better investor. One that's just waiting to be let out. Explore iShares ETFs and insights and let your best investor out. Visit iShares.com for more information.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show on the Stansberry Radio Network.
I'm here with Trip Adler, the founder of mega website Scribd. Trip, you're like a little baby, right? You're like 30 years old.
Yes, I am 30. I thought I was getting older for Silicon Valley standards.
That could be. Like when you turned 30, did you
I'm glad
get
you think
depressed?
that's still young, so that's good.
Well, at least you've kind of semi made it by 30, right? Like you've got a website that gets how many page views does your website get a year?
We reach about 95 million monthly uniques.
So about $1 billion a year, a little more than $1 billion a year.
Something like that, yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just want to do full disclosure. Your site, your site does many things. First of all, it's like you initially described it as a YouTube for documents. People can upload documents to the site, and all their friends can look at it, and so on. But also, you have a subscription package where people could read up to 500,000 books for just like $8.95 a month, something like that, right?
Yeah, well, when we started the company in 2007, it was a publishing platform for books and documents and other kinds of written content. And over time, we realized that the main thing our publishers wanted was a better source of revenue. And a couple years ago, we realized that subscription was really the best way to monetize their content. So that was how we kind of evolved into a book subscription service. And yes, now for $8.99 per month, we offer over 500,000 professionally published books, as well as our full library of user-generated content that we've accumulated since 2007, which is now at about 61 million documents.
61 million documents of all sorts.
Yep.
Like I noticed people upload legal documents, government documents, college essays, everything.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. It's really one of the broadest and just largest libraries of content on the internet.
And did you have another company before this or anything, or is this your first startup?
No, it's my first company. Started just as I was finishing school. So,
and how did you come up? How did you come up with this idea? I mean, I know already, but I wanted you to tell us.
Well, this idea. So I was having a conversation with my dad, who's a doctor at Stanford, and he had a paper that he wanted to get published, and he was complaining to me how the medical publishing process takes about 18 months to get a paper published, and my co-founder and I thought that was kind of silly, because we figured, well, we can just take this paper and publish it in a few seconds on the web. So that inspired this idea to create a website where we can allow him to take his paper, publish it on the web, share it with his colleagues, and we decided pretty early on to broaden the concept beyond just scientific papers, to include our school papers, to include people's books, to include PowerPoint presentations, legal documents, all those types of content that you just mentioned.
And I want to provide full disclosure first. So I subscribe. Sure. I pay the $8.99 a month, and I read books on Scribd. I'm currently reading Stephen King's On Writing on Scribd.
Great, cool.
Full disclosure, I'm also a small investor in your company.
Yep.
I think you already knew that.
Yep.
And but I'm going to drill down. Like we're gonna go through some fire here in a second. Is that okay?
Sure. Sounds like fun.
So the first thing is, obviously it's great that people could publish their papers and stuff on Scribd, your initial idea, but couldn't people just publish anyway on their own on like a WordPress site or whatever when you started?
Well, when we started, the landscape was pretty different. I mean, I can talk about how it was when we started or how it is now. Really, I'd say the difference now in our site as a publishing platform is we're focused on more long-form and heavily formatted content. So when you publish on our site, it's typically by taking a previously written document, usually is like a Word file, a PDF file, a PowerPoint, and then we've built a very slick HTML5 viewer that will take that document and preserve the formatting in a web browser. So we're focused on a very different type of content than WordPress or Tumblr or any of those other self-publishing platforms. And then we've also put a lot of work into the distribution and monetization of that content. So, we do a lot to make your content indexed by Google. We provide tools that allow people to really easily share the content. They can embed the documents on their WordPress or on their Tumblr, just like you'd embed a YouTube video. And then we also now have the monetization piece, where you can sell your written work or monetize it via subscription.
So I can write a book and sell it through your platform.
Yes, and pretty soon you'll be able to do that via subscription too.
Okay, so reeling it back to the beginning, how did you? So you built this site. How did you first get users? How did you first get funding? What happened? If an entrepreneur, in entrepreneurial terms,
sure.
Many people have ideas, but they're unable to execute. How did you kind of get it done?
Yeah, well, let's see. It was a long and bumpy path. So started out, I met my co-founder at Harvard, and my co-founder Jared, and we started. I had this one idea for a company. It was a totally different idea. It turned out in retrospect to be a very good idea. It was basically the idea for Uber, but I was just a few years too early. Having an idea too early is really it's just as bad as not having any idea at all. But it turns out that idea was a little bit too early, and we applied to Y Combinator with that idea, and that was actually back in 2006. So that was the second Y Combinator class, and we met with Paul Graham in Boston, applied with that idea. Paul didn't like that idea, encouraged us to switch to a different idea. So we tried a totally different idea over the summer at Y Combinator. And then we went through several other ideas before even getting to Scribd. So we spent a good year and a half iterating on different startup ideas using our $12,000 of Y Combinator funding before Scribd even came along.
So you were living off the Y Combinator funding more or less?
Yeah, we're just living in an apartment in Boston, living off our $12,000. So that was really the kind of the earliest phase of the company. So then Scribd came along. After trying and failing a bunch of these different ideas, we had this idea for Scribd, and basically we started doing two things in parallel. We started building the site, and we started promoting it to users. And I think it was a really important to do those two things in parallel. I mean, we really started with an MVP. I mean, the first iteration of the product just let you take a document and put it on the web, and it was that simple. We just started promoting it to users. Finding anyone in the internet who would use it, and we got the site to be about 100 people actually publishing content.
Can I ask, of those 100 people, how many did you know or personally invite to publish to, like, I'm just trying to figure out when it started getting kind of organic growth on its own, and nothing wrong with manual growth. I'm just curious about this.
Yeah, so I'm about to get to the story of how it kind of took off organically. So basically we built this. Most of these users are actually people who we just found on the internet who were trying to publish writing in some way, and we emailed them and encouraged them to use the site. So we were basically just picking off internet users one by one and encouraging them to use Scribd.
And what's an example?
What's that?
What's an example of a guy that you called?
So I remember we would see someone. So there was a site back then called Lulu that people were using to self-publish books. So we'd find one of those authors and say, hey, we have not even really an alternative to Lulu, but just another channel for publishing a document on the web. Why don't you try using it? Probably for 1 in 10 people we email, they'd actually upload something, and that kind of got the initial 100 users going.
I think this is a very important point, because I think a lot of people make the mistake of building a site and then they think they're going to flip it on, and then the servers are going to crash the next day because the site's so popular. But you actually went out and kind of by hand sought out users and worked really hard to build up those initial users.
Oh yeah, it was an extremely tedious process. It took just a lot of hours, but it ended up being really important. And the reason was that after doing that for a few months, we had an actual product that was working. We had an actual 100 people using the site. That content they're uploading actually started driving traffic. So we felt it just starting to take off organically. So we were feeling that organic tipping point coming, and then we decided to publicly launch. And at that point, we went to TechCrunch, and TechCrunch wrote a story about what we were doing. That story then got picked up by I was on the homepage of Dig and Reddit, so Dig was actually the big one back then. And at that point, it just completely exploded. We went from a really tiny site to one of the top 1,500 websites on the internet pretty much overnight. And I think that the fact that it took off so quickly was in part due to the fact that we had actually kind of built it out. We had people using it. There was an actual community there when it actually launched. And then at that point we had so much traction that a lot of those people came to check out the site, uploaded their own content. That content they uploaded then started getting traffic on its own, and then some small percentage of that traffic would then upload their own content, which created this loop that just allowed us to keep growing. So from that point on, we just started, doubling in size every 6 months or so, and we're still growing at almost at that rate.
So, not counting the books and subscription stuff, are people still? Are you still seeing the same growth rate on people uploading documents?
Yeah, so it's obviously slowed down a bit, but we're still growing it. The uploads between 50% and 100% per year. So
that's great.
So that 60 million quality contributed documents is still continuing to grow quite nicely.
And I would say your main competitor in that space is SlideShare. Would you say?
Yeah, SlideShare, and then another one called DocStock. I mean, DocStock has changed a bit over time, but yeah, probably SlideShare. Okay,
so DocStock just got sold, right? Jason Nazar was the CEO.
Exactly, yeah, and SlideShare now is owned by LinkedIn. So we're similar. We have different focuses. I mean, they're focused more on presentations. We're focused more on long form written works. So I think over time we've kind of diverged in focus. But yeah, I'd agree we do overlap in a few ways.
Okay, so now on the publishing stuff. So obviously it's great. $8.99, 500,000 books, give or take. It's a great bargain, particularly if you're reading more than a couple books a month, or even if you're reading more than one book a month. But how do you compete against Kindle? So Amazon just announced Kindle Unlimited, where I forget what their price is. It's about the same, give or take $1.
$10 or $9.99 or something.
Yeah. So and they also claim to have about 500,000 books available
Yep.
for free once you sign up for their Kindle Unlimited.
Yep.
Does this kind of were you crushed personally, emotionally? How did you take that news?
Emotionally, I was really excited. I was excited that we had created something that got so important that it got the attention of a big company like Amazon. So I thought of it as a bit of a compliment and also just a validation of the space. So basically, the way we've gotten from this document upload site to this book site is, as I was saying before, we saw all these people publishing content on our site. They really wanted to monetize it better, and we realized that we could help them monetize their content better through subscription, and also build a really terrific experience for readers on our site through subscription. So the same thing we built a while ago for sharing documents. We've evolved the product to now build both sides of the ecosystem. There's the publishing side and there's the reader side, and we connect them through subscription. And we started working on this last year. So we took actually a very similar approach to what we did in the early days of the company. We actually soft launched this book subscription service in January of 2013. So just like how we soft launched Scribd back in 2007, we did the same thing with book subscriptions, and we started to call up publishers by hand. We got a few small publishers in the service, and we immediately saw traction, just like we did in the early days of the company. And that started growing organically. And then we did our public launch in October last year. And that kind of really blew up in the same way. I mean, we've seen hockey stick growth ever since. So it's been, we really learned a lot of lessons from those early days of the company, and we've really connected those two pieces of the company really well.
But now with Kindle Unlimited, it seems like the big hockey stick for them is the fact that not only are they going to get probably more or less the same publishers as you, but they also have their enormous audience of self-published authors and readers of self-published authors. Yeah.
So coming back to Amazon. So I mean, really, we plan to win in this space through two key strategies. So the first one is content. I mean, we are very focused on building the biggest, the broadest, and the deepest library of content to be available via subscription for $8.99 per month. So far, while Kindle Unlimited has roughly the same or roughly similar title count to what we have, I mean, we do have quite a bit of a selection of publishers that are not available there. So, for example, two of the big five publishers, HarperCollins and Simon Schuster, they both are part of Scribd subscription service, but they're not part of Kindle Unlimited. So there are a lot of publishers that we have that are not in their service, and I think there will be a lot more over time. So that's the first strategy, is just focusing on content and having these content relationships that Kindle Unlimited and other subscription services don't have. And then the second is really just focusing on user experience and discovery in particular. So really the key innovation that we're doing is around the user experience for reading books and discovering books. Because when you layer subscription onto books, people start discovering books in really new ways. And there's much more less friction to starting to read a book, and the result is that people end up reading more books, they end up browsing more books, and they have a very different discovery experience. So if we can layer on an even more enhanced discovery experience through really good algorithmic recommendations, really good editorial recommendations, really good social recommendations, we can create a very differentiated discovery experience for books. So I think that by combining having the biggest library of content with the best discovery of books, we can have a very differentiated product in the market.
So what you're kind of saying is maybe there's room in the world for both Amazon and you to kind of coexist with kind of a different set of books and these subscription models. Because if I'm paying $9.99 there and $8.99 with you, and I have exposure to different books and different documents, maybe I'll do that rather than spending $100 a month on books.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll definitely coexist. I mean, if you look at other spaces like the video space or the music space, I mean, there's definitely a variety of players who are all very large. I mean, in music, you have iTunes and Spotify and Pandora and everybody else, and in video, you have Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Instant Video, and I mean, there's just going to be a number of players in books too. So I mean, I don't think this is like a necessarily a winner take all market, and I think we're going to have different approaches to the market.
Okay, but be real honest. When Amazon first announced it, and clearly you could say they were copying you or imitating you or validating the space, but you have to have been nervous a little bit.
No,
Deep
because
down.
we were expecting this. I mean, we entered the space knowing Amazon would likely compete. So it wasn't like they caught us completely off guard, and we were hearing rumors about this product coming.
Okay.
So I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it could have been a much more direct competitor. I mean, they didn't have nearly the same content relationships that we have. They didn't have a standalone app for the product. They didn't integrate it with Prime. So there could have been a lot of things that would have made it a more direct competitor.
So again, with them though, it seems like they've been having a real big focus on helping self-published authors. Like, do you see Scribd getting into that space at all?
Yeah, well, we kind of already are. So we do let people publish to our site. It's not available; they cannot publish directly to subscription yet, but we do have a self-publishing platform, and we do work with some of the already built-out self-publishing platforms like Smashwords. So if you want to publish your book to Scribd through subscription, we recommend authors go through Smashwords, and those authors see great success on our site. Self-published authors do really well through subscription because people are reading more through subscription, because people are browsing more. The distribution to backlist books and to self-published books is much higher than it would be through the traditional retail model. So I think self-published books is actually going to be our sweet spot in the content space longer term. So we're already seeing a lot of success there, and I think we'll continue to.
So tell me how that works. So let's say I'm going to self-publish a book. I go to Smashwords, upload my book. They put it on a bunch of platforms, including Scribd, and then I can say to Scribd, I want people to pay $8 for this, or how does it work?
So you set your own price, and then we pay you every time the book is read, and the price does need to be the same that it is on other retailers. So the same price that they're selling it on iBooks and Barnes & Noble and everywhere else, that we'll pay that same price every time someone reads the book.
I wonder if Scribd would be a great platform to launch a newsletter, for instance. So let's say I'm going to do, I don't know, a newsletter about weight loss. I could can I make a recurring subscription document on Scribd?
I mean, you can upload something monthly. So we definitely have some users using Scribd to publish newsletters. I mean, Scribd has a really wide range of use cases, and that is one of them. So you could definitely do that on Scribd, and pretty soon you could do it through subscription too. So or you can monetize it via our subscription. So that's definitely a good idea.
The key there is that I want the credit card charged monthly. As opposed to uploading new and then reaching out to my customers every month and saying, hey, can you please get the second issue? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like how newsletters normally work.
Yeah, I mean, we don't support that. So, we haven't really, focused on that as a vertical in terms of building out all that functionality. We're more focused on the more the book subscription aspect. But, you could technically use Scribd, though, for that purpose.
Yeah, because it seems like that's actually a real interesting business, and nobody really has done that. No one's really made kind of a default newsletter subscription service.
Yeah.
What about other sites like my kids really love fanfiction.net, where kids essentially write fan fiction for all their or kids or adults write fan fiction for all their favorite novels and upload it to this site. And then there's all these message boards and comment systems and everything where people can read all this fan fiction. Have you thought about doing any kind of fan fiction stuff?
Yeah, I think it's another vertical that does really well on our site. I mean, we tend to do really well for just fiction in general. So we have a lot of authors contributing fan fiction, and a lot of our a lot of community around that. So I encourage your kids to check out our fan fiction selection.
Okay, I will. And then there's also, do you see yourself competing with like Wattpad, where it's not like a book at all. Like people upload sort of a chapter a week, and some of those stories on Wattpad, I'm surprised by the number of views. They get some of those writers, and I think they're all kids, get millions of readers.
Yeah, I mean, Wattpad's done some really cool stuff, and they've done a really good job of building out a community and generating an audience for this for the things people publish. I mean, with all these companies, we're a bit of an indirect competitor. I mean, I don't really see us all as necessarily competing. I mean, we're more, each of us are just sort of focusing on different parts of the ecosystem. But yeah, I mean, Wattpad's also another company in the space.
And how many employees do you have right now?
We're at about 75.
What do you see as your biggest challenge as you've kind of grown the employee base in terms of leadership and how what's changed and what have you learned as you've grown the startup?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely learned a lot on that front. I mean, that was definitely one of the hardest things to figure out as a first-time founder. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's pretty simple. As long as you bring in good people and build a good culture, I mean, things kind of fall into place pretty easily. So I mean, for me, it's all just been around hiring the right team and setting the right culture, and as long as that that sort of comes together, I mean, I think things work out pretty well.
And how do you, I mean, did you just sort of like luck out that you found the right culture? Like, how did you sort of define that in the beginning?
Well, I mean, I don't think we necessarily defined it. It's the kind of thing that just evolves organically, and then as you kind of recognize the things that are working well, you can sort of focus on replicating those things. And I think we're still figuring out our culture. I mean, I think that's as the company scales to the next level, I think it's good that we're still kind of defining our culture in these early phases of the company, so that when we get bigger, we can kind of replicate that culture on a larger scale.
And what do you feel has worked? Like, what leadership skills would you advise like starting entrepreneurs to develop?
Well, let's see. Those are always the hard questions, because I'm still learning a lot of these things.
But obviously, you've been doing a good job, and it's.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're 6 years in the business. Like, that's a long time now for a startup.
I know. We're like we're hardly a startup in some ways. We're like, I like to joke that we're now a big company, but yeah, we're still very much a startup. Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, ultimately you kind of have to learn these things on your own. I mean, getting advice is only going to help you so much. I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to learn through experience and through trial and error. I think, I mean, in our case, we just, if you get the right people on board, it really makes all the difference in the world. And finding the right people it's not easy. It takes a lot of work to find them, and then sometimes you find them and you're wrong, so you need to then get new people. And I mean, it just takes a long time to get that team in place. And then once you get the team, you then have this challenge of you want to empower people and give them a lot of freedom to do their jobs, to learn on their own, to make mistakes. But at the same time, you want to make sure not to give everyone too much freedom, because you want everyone to be working on a focused vision and together in the right way. So it's all about getting the right people and then finding that balance in how they're managed. And I mean, I've just kind of learned it through just trial and error, and I'm still learning at this phase.
What was like the worst moment of the past 6 years?
It's a good question. Yeah, so there's a point around what was it, like 2011 or so, when just a lot of things were not working out at the same time. We were in a phase where we were far from profitable. We were kind of just burning cash at a high rate. The strategy was really just not that clear, I think, and a lot of people, including myself, didn't really believe it that well. And then on top of that, we didn't have really the right managers in the company to kind of to get through that phase. And I think just like that, it was just like a lot of things were kind of not going right at the same time. And I mean, that was kind of a tough situation. But, you know, fortunately from there, we just got focused on profitability and we got profitable really quickly. I mean, last year we had a very profitable year. So that worked out really well. We run some really good managers who've really helped, run the company and get it focused and get everyone aligned and move the company forward. And, you know, we've evolved the strategy, with this new book subscription service, which is going really well and has been, really energized the team and gotten everyone aligned around one direction.
Is the subscription service like how you got to profitability?
No, we really got to profitability just by really managing costs. It really is not that hard to get profitable for us. I mean, you hear about people talking about it's hard to get profitable. In our experience, it was just as long as we focused on profitability as opposed to growth, we got profitable pretty quickly.
So like what was your biggest cost? Like marketing?
Yeah, I mean, marketing, headcount, and just I think getting kind of sloppy with costs. Like just letting our server costs accumulate over time without our hosting costs without really paying much attention to that. I think it's just like costs are something you just have to keep an eye on. And a lot of startups they'll raise a bunch of venture money and they'll be focused on growth and they'll just get kind of careless with costs. But as long as we kind of pay attention to all the costs and really just focus on controlling them, that combined with a little bit of modest revenue growth got the company pretty profitable pretty quickly. So
with YouTube, like I guess it was early 2006, they had that song "Lazy Sunday," which was an Andy Samberg skit from Saturday Night Live that kind of propelled them to the masses. Like people who hadn't heard of YouTube before, suddenly watched Lazy Sunday and then got onto YouTube, and I think that was like their biggest sort of moment as a startup. Did you have a moment like that where some document was suddenly read more than any other document, and that's how you got up to all these views per month?
Yes, I mean there's been a lot of those. I think I think in our case though, it's more about the long tail and just we have this huge amount of content that just drives a lot of traffic. But there's definitely some documents here and there. There was let's see, the news about Prop 8 on gay marriage. I mean that pretty much broke on Scribd. I think that document got uploaded to Scribd and then just took off virally from there. So that was huge. There's been we had an author who published an essay on let's see, I think it was an essay on the link between intelligence and happiness that went really viral on the web, and he became a minor celebrity due to this essay he published. I mean, we had things like that happen. So there's been moments or pieces of content really helped us get discovered. But I think in general, it's more been the long tail of content and just kind of becoming embedded everywhere on the web.
So I feel like with SlideShare, a very typical strategy that people use is, particularly when they're marketing something, is they'll upload a slide to SlideShare, and then if it's popular, they get on SlideShare's list that goes email that goes out to their community of, I don't know, 1 million or so users, and here's the most 10 popular presentations of the week, and then that propels them to getting several 100,000 views. Like I have some slides on SlideShare that have, or some presentations on SlideShare that have, hundreds of thousands of views. Does Scribd have a similar type of thing? Like I don't know why SlideShare is where I've, the people who help me with marketing have always encouraged me to use SlideShare to upload presentations. Like, does Scribd have a similar thing?
Yeah, so we support presentations. I think like I said before, SlideShare is really focused on presentations, and we focus more on long form written content, and that's why we get more things like court filings and things like essays that people write. So we support presentations too, but it just hasn't been the content focus.
But like, let's say I had a court filing that I wanted people to look at, wouldn't
Yep.
I just put it on my blog and then link people to it on my blog?
Well, what a lot of people do is they'll upload to Scribd and then they'll embed it on their blog, because you would need something to display the court filing, because they're usually actual documents with formatting.
I
Right.
see. So they're like some sort of PDF or.
Yeah, so they're PDF. I mean, we're basically the tool for putting that PDF on your blog.
I see. Okay, and then I can embed it on my blog, and it's coming from Scribd, complete with the
Exactly.
ads.
Yeah. What's that?
Also with the ads, like you get your ads in there.
We don't put ads in the embedded documents.
I see. So what's the benefit to you? Just having the users and the traffic?
It's just traffic. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, our strategy is to drive subscriptions. So that embedded court filing would link to our service, and then if you come to our service, we would then try to convince you to get an $8.99 per month subscription to get access to this big library of content. So I mean, ultimately, we're much more focused on subscriptions than ads.
So one time I started a company. This was around 2006 or 2007, and I ran into Fred Wilson, of all people, who's a venture capitalist in New York, and he said the problem with first-time entrepreneurs when in their first companies is if somebody comes along and offers them $10 million, they can't really refuse it because they're going from having $0 in their bank to having millions of dollars. It's hard for young people to refuse it. So I'm sure when you were starting out this service and getting a lot of press, you must have had some initial offers for the business. Was this tempting to you, or how did you deal with it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's true in some cases. I mean, I think that's becoming less true. I mean, if you look at the current successful startups out there, there's a lot of these really valuable startups where the founders are not selling out. And I think that the trend of just starting a company just for the sake of making money is kind of on the way out a little bit, and people are doing this more for other reasons, like just the thrill of building a company and changing the world and working with other good people and all those kinds of things. So I'm just much more motivated by that latter set of things than by money. So I mean, if we wanted to, we can always focus more on just making money. I mean, if money were really my focus, I'd probably go into a job like finance. I think you make a lot more money doing that than in startups. But I'm really building the company for other reasons.
Well, as an investor, I hope you exit at some point. Like, do you see this as potentially an IPO eventually, or what do you see as the future of the company?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we want to make returns for our investors. So it's a good point, and I think we're officially going to try to go for the IPO. I mean, we keep growing our revenue very steadily every year, and if we just keep doing that for another few years, I think we'd be in a good position to go public. So I mean, that's the current plan. We're always open to whatever's the best strategy for the company and for our investors. So we're, looking at further options, but I think an IPO would probably be our best path.
Have you looked into yourself buying companies to expand your growth? Like, for instance, buying something like a fanfiction.net or before it was acquired, buying DocStock?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we've looked into a few. There's been a couple near acquisitions, but I don't think we've acquired anyone beyond like a 1 or 2 person talent acquisition yet. And there might be some more in the future, but we haven't done that yet.
So just in terms of lessons you've learned, like this is your first big company, what would you say are like kind of the top 3 to 5 things you've learned as an entrepreneur in starting this? Like, what would you do differently? In other words, lessons are often things that we would do differently.
Let's see. 3 to 5 things. I mean,
For
I've
one
learned
thing.
the importance of the importance of focus. I mean, I think focus is really important. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in the technology world, and especially when you have a large team of people, you need to kind of decide what you want to be and really get that team aligned around one singular direction. I've learned the importance of communication. I mean, I think that's been a really important thing to learn as a CEO. I mean, I don't, previously when I wasn't a CEO, didn't naturally communicate as frequently as you have to as a CEO. So I've gotten much better at just communicating in general and trying to create really good communication across the company. I've learned the importance of just effort and determination. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I mean, that's really the most important thing when you're building a company. I mean, the main reason why companies fail is because they give up. I mean, a lot of founders will say, "Oh, we failed because someone else, a big company launched a competitor, or we failed because you ran out of money." But you don't really fail for those reasons. You fail because things just get hard and you don't power through.
In
there's a few
2008, 2009, when it was a sort of we were going through economic collapse and it was hard to raise money. Were you scared then? Like, were you kind of financially flush then? Did you kind of pave the way for disaster by raising money in advance, or how did you survive that period?
Yeah, we actually raised at like the single worst month of the collapse. So we did not time that fundraise very well. We still got a pretty good valuation at the time, but we didn't really time it very well. So we've never really concern ourselves too much with these economic cycles. I mean, there's a lot of founders who say like you want to start your company at like the lowest point in the economic cycle and then sell at the high point. And I mean, sure, you can do that if that's what you want to do. But I mean, we're more focused on just building a good long-term company. I mean, as long as the company is self-sufficient, it doesn't really matter that much what's happening in the economy. I mean, for us, our toughest year was when we were not doing well financially. But as long as we're making a profit and we have a strategy, everything's going well here. I mean, we'll do great regardless of what's happening with the economic cycles.
And you don't see kind of Amazon necessarily encroaching on what you've already got. I mean, the one thing you've got that Amazon doesn't is that you could build you're the non-Amazon. Like, Amazon potentially has conflicts with publishers, and you could say to the publishers, "Hey, come to us."
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And publishers really like working with us. We drive a lot of revenue. We drive a whole new form of distribution, and they want more channels in the space, and that's one of the big reasons why they work with us. And Amazon's going to be competition, but I mean, if you're starting any company in any space, there's going to be competition from other big companies. I mean, that's just the reality of building a business. And we're lucky we have a competitor who we respect a lot, which is Amazon.
And how do authors how do the publishers and how do the authors benefit from your subscription model?
Well, basically, they contribute the content to our subscription, and then we pay them every single time a book is read. So the way publishing used to work before we came along with subscription was they would sell the file, and then as a user you would pay for access to you would basically pay to own the file. So you would give the publisher author money, and then they give you a digital file. We've switched it so that what the consumer does is they pay for access to the library, and then the publisher author gets paid every single time the file is actually read. So we've basically just switched it from an ownership model to an access model.
Do the publishers get less money now?
No, they get paid just like they would if they were selling the book. So we've basically on the publisher side preserved their business models as much as we possibly can, and then on the consumer side changed it from a la carte to subscription. So
you're taking risk in the middle, like potentially if everybody becomes a voracious reader, could you lose money on that?
Yeah, we're taking that risk as a company, and so far it's worked out really well. I mean, we do have some people who come along and will read a lot of books in 1 month, and we would lose money on that one user in that 1 month. But to us, I mean, that's that's usually an outlier. I mean, the average user is profitable for us, and having those voracious readers are basically just the cost of acquiring new customers.
So it's interesting. You probably have a lot of data about readership in the U.S. Like how many books a year does the average reader read?
Let's see. So the averages I've heard based on studies, it's about like the person who reads books reads about 7 per year. And our service is definitely higher because we're attracting a group of power readers. So in our service, the average reader is reading about a book a month, so about 12 per year. But we're seeing a different slice of the country's readers.
And what do they like to read? Do they like romance more? Do they like fiction, nonfiction?
Yeah, so romance and fiction have been the two biggest verticals, and within fiction, it's like mystery and thrillers are also really big. But it's really been all over the place. I mean, we have a really big selection of business books and a lot of business readers. We have a lot of cookbooks. We have a partnership with Lonely Planet to provide all their travel books. So we have actually a really neat app for traveling. I mean, every time I travel, I just download 5 books on the country I'm going to, and then as I'm traveling, I have 5 books on my phone for traveling in that country. We have the Dummies series, so you can get reference books, and we really have a very broad selection. But romance and fiction are probably the biggest so far.
That's interesting. You have the Dummies book, so that's Wiley is the publisher?
Exactly, yeah.
You should do like a search engine over them. So, I need help on like I don't know, neuroscience, and it takes me to Dummies for neuroscience.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and that's exactly what we have actually. And I mean, what's cool is that we make that whole library of content available for just $8.99 per month. So previously, if you wanted to get one chapter in the middle of the neuroscience book, you would have to actually buy the whole book. But now what you can do is you can just subscribe, and then you can look for the information within the book without having to purchase the entire book. So it really does change the experience of accessing informational books like the Dummy series.
For the reader, but for you, as soon as they look at the book, you have to pay Wiley, this book's been read.
So we actually do different terms for nonfiction than for fiction. So fiction, it tends to either it's a binary system, or it's either read or it's not, because people read fiction from start to finish. For nonfiction, like Dummy series, people might want to get information out of one piece of the book. So we have a concept of partial reads for nonfiction. So if let's say you want to get one recipe out of a recipe book, we wouldn't pay the publisher the entire price of the book for that recipe book, but we would pay a fraction of the book for getting that value out of the book.
Do you think Amazon has the same deal with nonfiction with publishers?
I mean, I don't know, but I would guess that I would guess they don't, just because I don't think they've put the same focus into subscriptions that we have. But I really just don't know.
So and right now it's just all text content on your site. Like you wouldn't do audio or anything like that.
We have a lot of plans in the works to do stuff like that. So there will be some announcements in the next few months. So
you should have like your own podcast app.
Yeah, no, I mean there's a lot of stuff we can do. I think I don't think we're gonna go into like movies or music or anything like that, but there's other types of content that are close to books and written content that I think would align really well with our user base, and with the technology platform we built. So there's we have a lot of stuff in the works. We're gonna have a huge series of announcements over the next 6 months or so.
Oh, well, that's great. So new products or new services or?
Yeah, I mean, a combination of new products and just new deals. I mean, we have a lot of really large content deals in the works. So our 500,000 books is going to expand quite a bit over the next few months, and we will have some new products coming out to better support the needs of our readers.
And do you think it's true that, like, with all this content out there, like, a lot of people have a hard time reading a book because while you're reading, it's like every 5 minutes you check your Twitter feed, you check your Facebook feed, you check your emails. Do you think are more people reading books every year or less people reading books every year?
I don't know what the averages are, in just the general world, but I definitely think we're in a position to get people reading more. Really, what we're doing is getting people to read more. Once you subscribe to our service, it's just there's so much less friction to getting into a new book that people end up reading more. We have data that shows that people buying books in our service read a certain amount, and then once they subscribe, they start reading a lot more. I think that we're in a position to get people to read more, and it's kind of amazing that subscriptions have come to books later than when they came to music or to video. I think it's time that this kind of service exists in the book space, and I think that as long as we keep adding books and improving the user experience, we can really make an impact on just the amount that people generally read.
Well, everything sounds great. So congratulations on, this is your first startup, but 7 years in, it's like you're profitable, you're growing, things are exciting. Have you, I'm sure people have you been able to benefit financially in any way? Or are you kind of in there for the long haul?
Yeah, I'm doing. I'm really am in it for the long haul, but I'm doing fine financially. I do get paid a salary here. We do have enough revenue that I could pay myself well enough to own a car and all that kind of stuff. I'm doing fine financially. I don't think you have to worry about me.
Always checking.
But I'm definitely in it for the long haul. And at the end of the day, my goal is just to build a great company and a great product, not so much to make money for myself. And now I do want to make money for our investors. That's a very important parallel goal. So we're going to make you as our investor quite a bit of money. But that's really the first goal is just to build a great company.
Well, congratulations again, and thanks for coming on this podcast. I really appreciate it and enlightening us on the publishing world and the state of entrepreneurship. And, good luck with everything.
Great. Thank you.
Okay,
great talking to you.
Yeah, thanks, Trip. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Okay. Talk to you soon. Bye.
For more from James, check out the James Altucher Show on the Stansberry Radio Network at stansberryradio.com and get yourself on the free insiders list today.
Powered by Snapdragon, the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra elevates your photography to epic new heights. Snapdragon processors deliver a color experience like no other, with sharp, industry-leading 8K video capture. You can also snap images in 200 megapixels, capturing more detail than ever. And those late-night blurry pics are a thing of the past, thanks to next-level night mode. Experience powerfully moving premium photography, only with Snapdragon. Follow us on Instagram at Snapdragon Official.